Hey YouTube, this is Shapeshifter coming at you with another video. For today's video I wanted to do something a little bit different than I normally do, and that is one of my favorite pastimes is listening to other people's NDEs. Sometimes I'll just put them on in the background while I'm working on art or building something or doing whatever I have to do around my house. And so I wanted to incorporate that to my channel. I wanted to share with you guys the experience of someone named Faith Green. She went to both heaven and hell in her NDE, and in my opinion, this is the most powerful and moving NDE I've ever heard. And so what I did, went ahead and did, it was split into two parts. I combined it into one giant video for your convenience, and I hope you guys enjoy it. With that all out of the way, sit back, relax, and enjoy.
But as I'm falling and I'm hearing these demons and I have this knowing, and this is where I'm going forever. I knew it was for eternity. It was just a knowing. And I'm trying to stop myself, and I'm grabbing at the walls and grabbing at whatever I can.
This is Touched by Heaven. Everyday encounters with God. Those moments when heaven and earth collide and we see God. We see His hand reaching out to us, attempting to get our attention, inviting us into a closer relationship. Here we share stories of encounter with angels, divine intervention, prophetic dreams, visions. In this episode, near-death experiences. I'm your host, Trapper Jack. Welcome to episode 97. I love this topic. I think there is, as far as just the strength of evidence in terms of that there is a heaven, a hell, a God, a Satan, and all that, pretty tough to beat near-death experiences. These shared experiences. I remember back in the 70s reading the very first book of the first compilation of these stories written by a guy named Moody, Life After Life. And everyone just went, what? We found out for the first time all these shared experiences of, well, there was this tunnel and this white light, and I saw my deceased uncle, and I was at heaven, and on occasion, there were these demons, and I seemed to be dropping into hell, and they seemed to be connected to a person's lifestyle, a person's heart, a person's mind. Near-death experience, but the skeptics would say it's just in your head. It's just in your. But that doesn't explain something. It doesn't explain the person who was blind from birth having this experience. It doesn't explain the blind person hovering above the operating table and seeing himself and the doctors scurrying around and hearing the things being said and being clinically dead, and coming back and saying, here's what I saw, here's what I heard, and just, that's stunning. The evidence is just crushing to the skeptical view. And here's all this evidence. And in this episode with Faith Green, Faith, you'll love Faith.
Hello.
Well, how we doing, Faith?
Hi, can you hear me?
We get to go with a woman from Australia named Faith.
I was named Faith, but I had absolutely none. And yes, yeah.
I get you. There was no faith. She grew up Catholic, hated her Catholic faith. Prayer, a waste of time. Hell, demons, all that talk. Fear, that's just fear tactics is all that. That's just there to make you behave is all that is. Her mom and grandmother, they came from faith and stayed with faith. In fact, how she got her name was that her grandmother somehow one day just said 3 times in a row,
call her Faith. My mum said, what? She said it 3 times. Call her Faith.
And everyone looked at her like, I guess her name is Faith.
My mum, to this day, said it freaked her out. That's why she called me Faith. I don't even have a middle name, just Faith. But being told this as a child, I resented it, I guess you could say. My mum would always say, you're special, God named you, and things like that. And so I've never really talked about that, but that's how I got my name.
In this episode, in fact, I'm going to make this 2 episodes. There is so much here. There is so much here because we get to go with Faith Green to hell and to heaven. We get to experience all of it with Faith Green. Faith died back in 2014 more than once, first on the operating table, and before she went into surgery, her mom brought a priest in for a confession.
I don't remember it, but Mum said I did. And obviously, if I didn't remember it, I didn't mean it. I never meant any of these. Going to church and doing confession, I never meant it. I never had real faith. I did as a little girl, and then I lost it. But I never had real faith, not like I do now.
Faith Green would tell you that 18 months prior to dying, she was living what she would call a normal life. This is before the spiral into drugs, addiction, meth being the latest drug of choice, an infection that worked along with the drugs that caused a weakening in her heart. Her aortic valve needed attention. She needed this operation.
I'm surprised I'm here, but anyway, thank you, God.
And Faith was now in the business of drugs. She was in the underworld. She was ruining lives. She was selling this stuff.
Yes, I was living a pretty rotten lifestyle. I was living with my partner. We were doing everything. We were doing everything. Any crime that you could pretty much get away with to make money, the cars, the power, and with that power, I was almost at one stage, I think, even addicted to that, having people afraid of me, afraid of who Matt and I were, afraid of who our friends were. We were hanging out with some really, really dark, dangerous people, and we got ourselves involved in something we were in no way prepared for.
You ever done any jail time?
Never. I would have deserved to.
Faith had long ago turned away from God. More recently, she had turned to a life of crime, and this was the moment that God decided to reveal himself to Faith through a series of near-death experiences, beginning with her open-heart surgery in June of 2014.
The first thing I remember was looking up and seeing the surgical lights. And I don't know how to describe it. Some of the things that I try to put into words, but I just cannot describe. But it's almost like the roof opened up and this most incredible, warm, loving light just came down and it engulfed me. And I remember just looking at this light thinking, I just want to go there, please. I just want to go there. And I was in awe. I was in absolute awe of what I was not just seeing, but feeling. I hadn't felt that kind of love in a very, very long time, and that kind of safety and just unconditional love. It was so pure. I just wanted to go there. And that's where my mind was at, I guess. That's the only way I can describe it. It was so powerful. It was just light, and I was just floating toward the light. And it was like, it felt like a vacuum, like something really fast sucking you back in.
Faith doesn't know it, but she's died. On the operating table, she died and then came back. Now she's in a 2-week coma. She's going to die again. So she's all hooked up. She's got all these tubes, and she's gone. She's in a coma as far as everyone there at the hospital is concerned. She's in a coma. She's out of it. And yet, on a spirit level, she's seeing everything. She's seeing people come in. She's seeing the doctors. She's seeing the nurses. She wants to communicate with these people. She's trying to communicate with these people.
And I was trying to get their attention, but I couldn't. And I could see everything that was going on. The nurses, different nurses coming in and that. I'm seeing things that's happening in the room, and like I'm talking to you right now.
And were you able to verify later, indeed, that nurses were coming in doing X and A and B?
I verified things that they said, everything that they were doing. I verified people that came to visit me and things they said to me.
So this was an ongoing near-death experience. Then sometimes these things last a moment or whatever. This is like an ongoing show.
I felt like I called it originally Never Never Land, and then I thought, when I worked out what it was, but I didn't. It took me a while to work it out. I was really, really completely oblivious to my condition.
Faith's experience was completely from bed. She felt like she could get up. She just didn't get up.
It was very bizarre. The whole thing was very bizarre. I'm witnessing what's happening. I'm seeing my mum, nurses coming in, talking to each other. I'm trying to get their attention, but I don't understand why they're not responding to me. I'm aware of what's happening around me in real time, and I'm trying to communicate, but nobody's talking back. And it wasn't until I saw there was these two nurses, one Filipino in appearance, the other one was blonde. They're really pretty, like really pretty women, and they were talking in the corner. And I remember looking over, and they're going through my paperwork, and they're lifting up pages. And as they're lifting up the pages, I see an upside down crucifix. Now, that to me, I know that's a bad sign. That's a negative. That's dark. That being Catholic, that scared me, and I reacted, and I said to them, "What does that mean? Why is that on my paperwork?" And I remember them, both of them, just stopping and then looking at me, but they looked at me in the most insidious, hateful way, and then they began to laugh. Now, I remember being really surprised because I've been trying to talk to nurses the entire time, or anybody, to even my mother, to try and get their attention, but nobody was hearing me. But they could hear me, and they started to laugh. And then they started to talk to each other about me, saying, this, I don't want to swear, but this bitch, she can hear us. She can hear us. And they were happy that I could hear them. And I said, what does it mean? I was trying to get answers. I didn't understand, firstly, why they were being so mean to me and calling me names. Secondly, I didn't understand why there was an upside-down crucifix on my paperwork, and why they're getting enjoyment out of my confusion. And they just said, well, you screwed your life up, Faith, and the upside-down crucifix, it's your mark. You've been marked for hell. And I said, what do you mean I've been marked for hell? I was trying to, and as they're saying this to me, I'm not comprehending what they're saying. It was extremely traumatic, to say the least. So I'm trying to work out, what do you mean I've been marked for hell? Because I feel like I'm fine in my hospital bed talking to you. And they said, we're just waiting for you to die. And you're going to hell. You screwed your life up on earth, and yeah, this is
the whole concept of this doesn't make any sense, does it? It's like finally somebody's talking to you, and they're talking to you like this.
Yes,
because you don't know who they are yet.
No, I think they're nurses. I think they're just two bad people trying to hurt me.
Are they dressed like nurses?
Gowned up like nurses, and interacting. Now, this is what freaks me out: interacting with other nurses. So I think I've got a little more understanding on that now, and it was actually after speaking to Howard Storm.
Faith referencing Howard Storm, one of the more celebrated near-death experiences, because he too encountered demons and then Jesus. We have Howard back at episode 7 of this Touched by Heaven podcast.
I believe that the demon nurses, because that's what they were, and when I figured out that they were demons, that they laughed at me even harder then. It was like I was an idiot because I didn't work it out soon enough. Everything was mocking, belittling, and hate, and they took my hope away. And without hope, what do you have? They pretty much said there was nothing I could do. I absolutely believed them. So they tortured me in ways where they would pull memories of some of my worst childhood experiences, memories that I had forgotten about, but I would relive it, visualize and relive it. Do you understand?
Yeah.
It was very, the whole thing was bizarre, but it was all about torture. And when I did work out what they were, and it wasn't until one touched me actually, and her hand was ice cold, and when I realized, and I could see just the side of her eye, and it was sort of like reptilian, and then it just went black. And then the other demon nurse's eyes went black. And it was then I said, use the demons. And they went, yes. And they laughed. They were laughing and mocking and calling me the most disgusting, vile names. They hated me. And all they wanted to do was hurt me. They couldn't wait. They were in glee, and they wanted to assist, and they kept saying those words too, and they've always stayed with me, assist in my transition.
They were assisting you in your transition. Interesting.
And it creeps me out to this day, but there was a doctor who always wore black. He was bald. He had piercing blue eyes. That is the only time I actually saw a doctor talk to them and give them instructions, knowing what they were. And
is this a real doctor? Is this an actual doctor?
A real doctor.
You verified that afterwards? You verified after?
Yes. he would come into my room during my coma, and I only ever saw him talk to the demons once when he said, you need to assist in a transition, she's taking too long. And I remember being horrified that a doctor's instructing them. And they came up with this plot to inject an infection in my line. And as she's injecting the infection in my line, I'm literally grabbing my lines and trying to stop, like you do with a hose, to stop the flow of water from going in. I was actually pulling out stomach drains and catheters. I mean, I pulled out, I think, 3 times catheter and 2 stomach drains.
Do you think they were trying to fool you into doing that, or do you think something was actually going on into your body?
Well, I think, honestly, that, I don't know. I got an infection.
But think about this. If an infection is happening, and they can create in your mind that they're going to put the infection in, and then they have you ripping tubes and all this kind of stuff, they kind of get what they want. You know what I mean? They got a crazy person here is what you look like.
Well, that's exactly right. They ended up tying me to my bed because I was a danger, not just to myself, but to nurses. Yeah. That's exactly right. But I also try to look at it as they're there to, what's the word?
They influence the whole world. It's a fallen world.
And that's how I'm viewing it.
They can make you believe that they did it. You know what I mean?
They lie. They could do anything. Their whole purpose was to torment me, torture me, lie to me, manipulate me, take my hope away. But they were also trying to get me to, curse God. They were victimizing me. And so this is what they do to us now. I think I was getting to see, honestly, what goes on behind the scenes that we can't see, that we're not privy to as humans. But that's how it is. Because my guardian angel, I was there. Now, I met him later in heaven. He was there. He was always in the background. They tell you telepathically. It's like a knowing. I knew that. He was always there, but I never, ever called out to God. If I had called out to God, he would have been there for me straight away. Yeah. I bought into the demons' lies. I bought into their manipulation. I felt victimized. I didn't understand why they hated me so much. I didn't feel deserving of it. And I had blinders on. I was just so focused on them and trying to survive that I wasn't seeing all the beautiful miracles that were happening around me. Do you understand? That I can see now looking back. Like even when my mother came in, every time she'd walk in the room, her aura. Now, when I was a little girl, I could see auras. And it went away when I think I was about 12 years old. And her aura was just magnificent. And it repelled the demon nurses. They would leave. And I got peace. It was the only time I got peace. And when my mum prayed, I not only I could see her prayer. I could see the power of her prayer. But I didn't it's happening right in front of me and I'm not acknowledging God's miracles. I wasn't seeing it, right, even though I was seeing it. Do you understand? I was so stupid.
And you know what this parallels, and we talked to Howard Storm early in these episodes as well. It parallels that too when demons surrounded him and he cried out to God. And when he did, they went away. We don't know the power of prayer, do we?
No.
We don't see it like you were able to see it, how it repels them.
Oh, they can't. They hate it. They hate it. They hate the rosary too. Yeah, the rosary. The power of prayer, God showed me that. He showed me it was prayer that did that. And I'm so glad he did, because I used to think it was a waste of time. I used to see it as a punishment as a child. I really did. I resented the rosary. I resented anything to do with prayer. And I thought it was a waste of time. I'd even say it to my mum, you're just wasting your time. You could be spending time with family. You could be doing this. No, you're always on your knees praying.
Did you see your mom praying the rosary?
My mum was at my bedside praying the rosary nearly every day.
And what did you see? What could you actually visually see in terms of power?
It was the most, it was not like notes. It was like colour coming from her mouth, but I didn't understand it. Do you understand? I didn't understand why colour was coming from her mouth. I didn't put two and two together. It was the rosary. I felt it. My mother only says the rosary, and she says them daily. She has prayer meetings. My nana, it's exactly the same. My nana prays all day long. They're devout Catholics. I resented it as a child, so I'm still learning. But that's how the devil also tries to get us to turn on God.
What a wonderful experience, though, in that hospital room to see the impact of prayer. At this point, when you're realizing, you got demons and all this stuff, did you believe any of that even existed?
No, not at all. Not even a little bit. I thought it was just fear tactics to keep kids to behave. Like, really, I didn't believe in demons. I guess I was superficial, Christian or Catholic, just in case I would. So I did have a relationship with God as a child, but trauma and abuse and pain, it's the devil's biggest weapon. God doesn't give us a bad life. It all comes from the evil one, and that's what I call him, the evil one. And they're independent persons with their own evil consciousness. It's, some people have asked me, do you think your negative experience was because you were living a negative life and you sort of, that's where your consciousness was going to be? And my answer to that is no. They're real demons around us. There is a hell, there is a heaven, there are angels, and there are demons. And the demons, their biggest goal is to get as many souls as they can because they hate God. They hate God, and they want us to, and they'll use every trick in the book. And I got to see that, and I'm grateful for it. I'm so grateful.
But wasn't there a good guy too that would come in too?
Yes, a beautiful black. He had a South African accent too, black nurse. And every time he came into the room, his aura was magnificent, and the demons couldn't be around him either. And he was just always in the background or there, but he was so beautiful and so loving and kind. And I just thought he was a really beautiful nurse. That's it. Like that's all I took from him being there. But I wasn't looking back now. His aura was like way more magnificent than the others, but I didn't understand it. I didn't know what I was saying. I wasn't comprehending.
But when he walked in, the others left.
They left. Could not be around him. And when Mum would leave, they would come back and they'd torment me. And it wasn't until, and I didn't believe in this either, but my mother, scapula and miraculous medals.
You can hear Faith touching her miraculous medal and her scapular, which is an article that you place over your head.
Anyway, she came into the hospital and she had medals, so she pinned them on me. I didn't see it until later, but the demons didn't. They left me alone after that. They didn't come back. When
you had the miraculous medal on you?
While they were on me, they did not come back.
Interesting.
I got peace. I was left alone. It was the only time I actually had peace during my coma.
What's interesting, at this point in your story, what I find also so interesting, you're coming from a place who was really pretty bitter about your Catholic upbringing. You're not buying any of this. You're not buying angels, devils, heaven, hell. You're not buying any of that stuff. As you look back on this, it's like you're seeing everything unfold, that prayer matters, a rosary matters, a miraculous medal matters, a cross matters, when it's pinned to you. All these things that we know by or believe by faith, you're finding out in actual practical experience. A non-believer, if you will, is finding out by this practical experience.
Yes, that's exactly that. And that's, I'm a, I guess you could say, a slow learner. But yeah, I was named Faith, but I had absolutely none. And yes, yeah, I did.
I get you. We all learn the hard way. Okay, where do we go next? During this 2-week coma, Faith's heart stopped on numerous occasions, at least 5 by her mom's count. And on at least one occasion, Faith had another one of these, the roof opens up encounters.
The roof just literally slid across and opened up, and a light, just the most unbelievable, warm, loving light just engulfed me and embraced me. But this time, as I'm floating up towards the light, it's really hard to explain. I don't feel like I'm looking down, but I can see what's going on down below. And I'm floating up towards this light, and I can see I must have been flatlining because there was a nurse sitting right at my desk, and she jumps up. Mum was in the room, and some other nurses and a doctor, they all looked the same to me because they're all gowned up, so I couldn't really distinguish who was who, but come into the room, and a nurse is slowly, gently pushing my mum out. And I remember my mum, she was crying, and she had rosary beads. And it's weird I remember that, but I saw those rosary beads in her hand, and she was on the phone in the other hand. And then next thing, I'm looking at the helicopter pad above Westmead Hospital, and then I'm at the edge of the blue looking at the earth, and then I'm in space. I remember just thinking, what? Like, I was in absolute awe. There is life after death. There is life after death. And it was like instantly, it's like all the secrets of the universe, of life, of everything was exposed to me. It's like someone plugs you in and just fills you with information. And I understood everything. I understood it all. And in that moment of understanding, it was like the light that was pulling me up just dropped me. That's the only way I can describe it. It dropped me, and I'm falling so fast. Like, I can't even describe how fast I'm falling. And I'm falling into what I knew it was a dark place, because the first thing that was the smell. It stunk. I was falling into this dark, disgustingly stenchy hole. And as I'm falling, I'm trying to stop. I know this is good. It's like a knowing. I know where I'm going is bad, and I'm trying to stop myself, and I'm grabbing at the walls and grabbing at whatever I can. And it's like the walls of this hole just turned into every vile creature you can think of, and they're ripping at my hands and ripping at my feet. And I'm feeling it. I'm feeling every tear, bite, sting. And as I'm falling, by this stage, I know I'm going to hell because I can hear the demons laughing. And I'm falling into this dark hole, and all I hear is these demons laughing, telling me what they're going to do to me when I get there. And the terror. The terror I was experiencing, and all I could, sorry, this part's really powerful and it's really hard to explain. But as I'm falling and I'm hearing these demons, and I have this knowing, and this is where I'm going forever. I knew it was for eternity. It was just a knowing. I could feel, I think, God's essence, the light, the good part of me, the good faith was leaving me, and I was just being left with the rotten evil that I'd allowed corrupt me. And I tried so hard to scream out to God, and I just wanted to say, oh, I'm so sorry, and I just wanted to say sorry. God, I'm sorry. And as I'm trying to say those words, it's like the evil in me was just taking my voice over, and words were coming out. I don't even want to say, but it was like, I love you, Satan, and things like that.
So as you're trying to cry out to God, they're not letting you say the word God?
They're not allowing me. They're manipulating my mouth and saying these vile things. And it was like this internal battle of faith against these demons, and I'm just trying so hard to get the words out. And as I do again, and as this is happening all at once, simultaneously, I'm watching and feeling the light of God leaving me. And I just, in the end, I gave it everything. I mean, I never fought so hard in my life, and I just screamed out with every part of my being, I'm sorry, God, please forgive me, I'm sorry. Sorry.
No, that's real. That's real, Faith. That's real.
And he did.
He forgave you.
And it was like in an instant, I'm back in the universe, in space, I'm just floating. And God wanted me to see this because I needed to see the power of prayer. I'm looking at the earth, but this time, the earth is vibrating this energy of energies. There's no way to describe it, but this vibration is coming off the earth. And it's like space pictures, but it's so much more beautiful. And you've got to imagine a pulsation vibration of this most beautiful, beautiful sound. And as this vibration is pouncing off the earth, it's sort of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Shooting out light, energies of light. And as these energies of light are shooting up, I'm floating, they're pushing me a little bit up closer to heaven. So it was then I could hear what the sound was. I heard my mother's prayers. I heard my nana's prayers. I heard people I didn't know praying for me. I was hearing all the world's prayers. And these prayers were lifting me closer and closer and closer to heaven. And it got me there. It got me there. And I knew the whole journey, I knew, thank you, Mum, thank you, Nan, thank you, prayer meetings, thank you, Facebook. I mean, the amount of people that had praying for me, and I had no idea.
You can actually see the earth vibrating, pulsing, light flying out from it. You're also hearing it. It's also making music.
It was the prayer. It was prayer, but it sounded like music. But it was prayer.
Oh wow!
I can't describe it. It's indescribable.
Again, we have no idea. We have no idea the power of prayer. We don't know.
Oh no! And that's if not one of my biggest lessons I've learned from this, and it's something that I pray all the time. My children pray. It is so powerful, and it's our biggest weapon against the devil. It's our biggest weapon, and people don't realise that.
It drives them away.
The amount of people they had praying for me, and I had no idea. And as I'm getting into heaven, the beautiful, beautiful African nurse was standing there, and he cracked this joke. He had the most beautiful smile, and I went, oh, my goodness, it's you. And he said, oh, gosh, you had us worried there you weren't going to make it, but we never gave up hope. That's what he said.
There you go. We never gave up hope. There's a message for us. Never. I don't care who it is. Never give up hope. Never stop praying for people. Next week, there's so much more. There is so much more. As good as this was, there's so much more.
Way more beautiful and way more perfect and way more alive.
What Faith sees and hears in heaven, what she is allowed to remember is phenomenal when she comes back. It's things you've never heard before. Never heard before. But let's go into, before we go though, I just want you to think about a couple of things. Do you see how easy it is to make the demons fly away? Prayer. Walking into a room where somebody came in with God, with Christ, with them, they fly. They cannot be in the same room with God. They can't be in the same room with prayer. They can't. Keep that conversation going with God. It's painful. They fly away. Look how weak they are in comparison to prayer. And just keep asking yourself, why do they hate us so much? What have I done to them? Everything. Do you see how their power is neutralized? They have no power around God. They have no power around prayer. They have no power when we're connected to God. They fly. Why do they hate us? We kill them. I mean, we neutralize them. We mute them. They're all about ego and self and having power and delivering people into hell. And they hate God and they hate us and anything that would mute their influence in this world. This is their world. Jesus said it. He is the ruler of this world, and we come in and we neutralize, we mute, it's bombs away, man, in this war. Do they hate us? You bet they do. Wouldn't you hate someone who walked into a room and you no longer could talk and you no longer could move your body and you were just paralyzed? If someone just could do that to you, I guess how you'd feel towards them. Well, that's how they feel towards us. They hate us. But look again, this is interesting again. It doesn't end when our life ends. There's still that battle, isn't there? There's still that battle after we die. There may still be a battle going on, as there was, over Faith's soul. She's still borderline, isn't she? There's still something in her. And so here's God gives her this warmth of his love, first to help her understand that there is a God, right before he allows her to plummet into hell. And she actually feels God removing himself from her. She can feel it. You know what? Where I went to when I heard her say that, a couple of things. From the cross. When we mentioned this in last week's episode, the Father completely disconnected from the Son so that the sacrifice would be complete. She felt that. She felt what Christ felt. The Father removing himself, totally disconnected. What a horrific feeling. And she felt God remove, and she's trying to call out to him. She can't even say his name. She's not even allowed to say his name, can't say God. Satan comes out of her mouth, and every foul word in the world, and she can't say it. But somehow within faith, it is still there, isn't it? Because even though God's removed himself, there's still that little flicker inside faith, isn't there? There's still that little flicker that even though she knows he's gone, she's still calling out to him. And then the sweetest words, the sweetest thoughts that God ever hears from us. I'm sorry. He heard, I'm sorry, forgive me. And even there, in the next life, the afterlife, even there, even after he has pulled himself completely from faith, he hears, I'm sorry, forgive me. And she means it. And he brings her back. Isn't that amazing? God's mercy. And then Faith suddenly finds herself in space, hovering above Earth and seeing the Earth vibrate with prayer. It's making music with prayer, lightning bolts being shot out from the earth. And she actually hears prayers being said for her, and they are boosting her towards heaven. That was gorgeous how she described that, wasn't it? What a beautiful scene that is. And what Faith doesn't know is that she just, confirmed what the church has been preaching since the beginning. The early church has been saying it till now, that there is a place where after we die, where we're not in heaven, we don't qualify yet, but we're not in hell, thankfully, an in-between place. A place where the prayers of those still living on earth help propel us more quickly to heaven. That's what the early church says was purgatory, and is still being preached by the church. I know there's still arguments over this, but this is exactly the definition of purgatory, a place where our prayers for the people in purgatory helps them get out of there more quickly and get to heaven more quickly. Faith, you don't know it, but you just proclaimed what the early church said. A place where, well, I just heard it yesterday in the Gospels. It's the Sermon on the Mount by Jesus. What does Jesus say? He talks about sin. He's talking about sin. And he says, you're going to be taken to the judge, and the judge will judge you, and then you're going to be turned over to the guard who will throw you into prison, and you're going to stay there until your debt is completely paid to the last penny. And then you're going to get out. Well, where is that? Where is a place where you are imprisoned, where you can't get out until the debt is paid in full, and then you're released? Well, that's not hell. You're not getting out of there, and it's not heaven. You're not being thrown in jail there. What is this in-between place? Yes, you've been forgiven. Yes, you're forgiven. You're saved. You're going to end up in heaven. But, the analogy would be you broke the guy's window down the street. You broke the guy's window. Well, he forgave you, but you still got to pay for the window. And although the word purgatory is never used in the Bible, these references to this place where you have to pay your debt. You still have to pay until the last penny. You're being purged, if you will, of your debt on your way to heaven. And the prayers of those on earth help propel you more quickly to heaven. An early teaching, and still a teaching of the church. And as Faith gets to the pearly gates, is she allowed in? Does God say, come on in?
I was allowed to stay. However,
we'll find that out next week. Part 2, the conclusion of this heaven and hell near-death experience of Faith Green. As God continues to reveal who he is, even after death. Amazing, just amazing. Special thanks this week to my Australian friends. Lauren Neeson was on this podcast, maybe almost a year ago, and she led me to this Faith Green story from a podcast that she was also on down in Australia, a podcast called Spirit Sisters, hosted by Karina Machado. So thanks to all three of you for making these 2 episodes possible. Thank you for listening, and thanks for your financial support. My shout out for our Patreon supporter, Mark Smith. Thank you so much, Mark. Appreciate you helping us out through Patreon. If you feel blessed by these episodes, you can go to this episode 97, here at touchedbyheaven.net, or straight to patreon.com and just search for Trapper Jack. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing these episodes. Thanks for rating and reviewing in your podcast app. And thank you for your stories. Get a hold of me at touchedbyheaven.net and tell me your encounter story. And I'll see you next week here at Touched by Heaven, Everyday Encounters with God. I'm Trapper Jack.
but an angel came down with the book of my life. It projects onto the sky. It's like a projector. And I'm looking at the sky, watching my entire life from birth to death.
This is Touched by Heaven. Everyday encounters with God. Those moments when heaven and earth collide. And we see God, we see his hand reaching out to us, attempting to get our attention, inviting us into a closer relationship. Here we share stories of encounter with angels, divine intervention, prophetic dreams, visions, and yes, again today, near-death experiences. I'm your host, Trapper Jack. Welcome to episode 98 of Touched by Heaven. This is part 2 of the near-death heaven-hell experience of Faith Green. If you didn't hear last week's, you have to go back. It's required listening. Go back to 97 and we'll see you back here at 98. So much has happened at this point. Last week, of course, we've had at least a couple of near-death experiences. We've had this 2-week coma that's been ongoing. We've had demons in the hospital room, and of course that plunge into what seemed to be hell, a time in what seemed to be purgatory, and now heaven. Another fascinating episode here with Faith Green, part 2 of her story and her near-death heaven-hell experience here on Touched by Heaven, Everyday Encounters with God. We're now knocking on heaven's door. You've got your black nurse, who you find out is an angel.
He's been with me all my life. Yeah, but there was other people up there. I was being welcomed. There was people I knew, and there was people I didn't know, but I knew. It was really bizarre. It was like a huge welcome home. Everything's done telepathy. It's quick. You read each other's thoughts, but not just that. You feel each other's feelings. Do you know what I mean? It's the way you communicate in heaven is so different to down here.
You're perfectly connected. Then you're saying because you hear their thought, you feel their feeling. Everything's connected. We've talked about in the Old Blind Faith Live podcast how everything is alive. Everything is interacting with everything else. There's nothing dead up there.
Yes. Everything's alive. Even the grass. It's living. The flowers are alive. They sing. I can't even describe the music. I'm just getting a gaze, and I only got a glimpse, but what I got to see was just unbelievably beautiful. But relationships up there are different to down here. You're one big family up there. It's not like couples. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's no couples, there's no marriage. It's
They're there. I do, exactly. So I'm only just started reading the Bible like now. I'm still learning. I've got a lot to learn because my resentment towards the church was pretty deep. So I never really listened. I never really cared. Because when I was a little girl, I always viewed Jesus, I guess, Jesus, God, and the Holy Spirit as three separate people. I didn't understand. Because when I was in heaven, I felt Jesus. I never saw God because he was so bright and so light I couldn't look at him. I felt Jesus. I felt like I would get to meet Jesus later, but then I realised I felt Jesus because God was Jesus. That's why I felt him. I'm still learning from my near-death experience, even now.
Yeah.
Still
Well,
learning
the Trinity's all together, and it's one person, three persons in one, and you were feeling all of them in a way. You were feeling all of them.
Yes, and it's very hard to verbalize it. Not to mention, I mean, it was also really hard to admit. Who wants to admit that they was such a bad person that they went to hell? Like, do you know what I mean? It was very hard to process when I did wake up, but I had to go through my life review. All right, so my life review. Angels, there's this library, and an angel came down with the book of my life. Like, it projects onto the sky. It's like a projector. And I'm looking at the sky, watching my entire life from birth to death.
Any recollections of how those angels looked?
I never saw them with wings, but they were big. But some people see them with wings, but they were just like really, really, really big, beautiful. Everyone's big. And God was just, I dropped to my knees when I heard his voice, because that's how I remember it. I heard his voice, and you hear it in the heart. It's straight to the heart. It's like a connection he has with everyone, all of us individually. He knows us better than we know ourselves. And when he spoke, I knew I was in the presence of God, and there was no hiding. He sees it all. But he was just so bright and so light that I could not look at him. I didn't feel worthy. I felt his unconditional love for me, his disappointment, almost like a father disappointed in a child. It's forgiveness, absolute forgiveness. I mean, I knew instantly. And I was sorry. And it was like as soon as I was sorry, I was forgiven in that instant. It's like it didn't happen.
So as you're going through your life review and you're seeing the bad stuff, and you're seeing it, and in that moment, you're feeling sorry for that, what happens in the book?
I'm so sorry. It's erased.
It goes away.
It's like it didn't exist, yes.
Because you asked for forgiveness. And we can do that on earth. We don't have to wait till we get to heaven to do this.
Well, that's what God was showing me. It happens here on earth too, and we don't realize that. But you have to be sorry from your heart. And he knows our hearts. You can't just say you're sorry. You have to mean it. You have to feel it. And I was sorry for everything. I was sorry for all of it.
Did it feel like a long time you're looking at your life review? Do you have any sense of time?
There's no time.
There's no time.
At all. Doesn't exist up there. So I couldn't even tell you. It felt like I was up there for such a long time, but I can't even put it into words. I try to work out the time, but there's just no time up there. Time doesn't matter.
Well, you're outside time. Heaven is outside time. Absolutely.
Well, exactly. Yeah. I was asked questions during my life review, and they were really simple questions. And I got to see so much. I got to see where I screwed up. I screwed up so much. Got to see how stupid I was. I got to see all the gifts that God did give me that I didn't appreciate at the time. I got to see how small acts of kindness, how they can change people's lives. I got to also see, because I had no self-love and no self-worth, that I was a pretty nice person. Like at one stage, what happened? Because you're not only seeing, but you're feeling every feeling of interaction that you have with people and what they're feeling. So you are empathetic and you have more understanding. I mean, for instance, when I was a little girl, my grandfather, he used to drink. Doesn't anymore. He's a wonderful man now, but he used to drink. And he was very violent back then. And I have a little uncle. He's 3 years younger than me, and we grew up like siblings. I used to call him my little brother. And he was hyperactive, and he used to get flogged, like unmercifully flogged with a belt, lash after lash after lash.
By your grandfather?
By my grandfather. And it was a common thing. I despise my grandfather for it, but I would dive on top of Michael and I would wrap my arms and legs around him like a spider monkey and scream, stop, 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 till my pop stopped.
So you were protecting your...
I was protecting him because I just counted on the fact that my pop wouldn't hit me. And I got to see and feel not only how my little uncle viewed me, he viewed me like his hero who saved him, but I got to view my pop, his relief when I would do that so he could stop, and his hating himself and his guilt he felt afterwards, and that he doesn't know why he lost control like that something would take him over. He didn't like doing it, and God was showing me that my grandfather, what he was going through.
So you were being taught, despite what your grandfather was doing to your uncle, you were not to hate him.
Not to hate my grandfather, no.
And they were trying to show you what brought him to that, huh?
That point.
That man that didn't like himself either because of what he was doing.
Well, he hated himself, and he was relieved that I did it.
They're almost teaching you empathy, weren't they? Have empathy for someone who's struggling.
Very much so. I mean, he turned his life around. He's an amazing man now. Yeah, I was shown that also he's human, and he worked hard and he was tired, and Michael was hyperactive and he was naughty and he was full on, and they didn't know much about hyperactivity in those days. Yeah. And he was considered a naughty boy, and that was sort of the done thing. But everyone knows what's happening, and I think it's almost like you become a genius. Everyone is... It's like, I don't know, they say we use, 3% of our brains or something? It's like the rest opens up and you just know.
Don't you wish you were on Jeopardy right then and there? You could have won on Jeopardy. Yes. Nobody could beat you, Faith. Nobody. You would know the answer or the question before it was even asked.
Exactly. It was, I also had a knowing, because I don't remember it all. I just remember... I did learn a very, very big lesson, and I believe this has got to do with my sole purpose, actually, is abortion. And it is one of the devil's biggest weapons, and it is wrong. And I met my daughter in heaven, and that was one of the toughest things I had to experience was that. I got to see the nursery, and it is the most incredible place, but there's so many children. And it is so... What's happening with abortion, especially in America, and they're doing it now even in New South Wales, late-term abortion. Abortion is the wrong period anytime, but, there's I was shown a lot of women are going to hell because of it, unfortunately. I don't even like to say it like that.
There just needs to be an I'm sorry. There just has to be a real I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was. I never forgot it. It damaged me. I was extremely sorry for it straight away. I didn't want it. I wish I didn't have it. It was sort of pressured, I guess you could say, and to a person that was just totally unsuitable. But it shouldn't matter. I was given a gift, and out of inconvenience, I did a selfish, horrible, evil act. And I was also shown in heaven that women who do, and the feminists might hate me, but this is how it is, women who have families in heaven and are good mothers. And you don't need to have your own children to be a good mother. Some women can't have children, and they're the ones that can be mothers to children that are unwanted. You know, there's plenty to go around. But they're honoured in a way in heaven. They're almost honoured. Women who have families or are good mothers and have children, they're honoured. They almost have a special blessing to do that, because that's exactly, like I said, I've got to be careful with what I say.
No, that's beautiful, Faith.
Feminism,
I'm telling you,
that's how it was shown to me. Honestly, it was how it was shown. You know, we're here to be families and have families, and we're families in heaven.
Tell us about your daughter. How old is she?
Well, she would be now. I think she would be. It was 2011, so she would be 9 years old now.
Yeah, 9 years old.
Yeah. She looked just like me, and she called me mummy, and she just looked at you. It was like looking at a miniature version of me, and it was instant love, instant connection. But I even now find it hard to talk about that. But you know, and I named her Sophia. I gave her a name. I gave her a name when I came back after my coma. I decided to give her a name.
In case you just missed it there, she said that when she came back, she has now named her daughter Sapphire.
Yeah, she's up there waiting happily for me. But that was a tough lesson I didn't learn. And unfortunately, women say, and men, we're all being lied to. It's $1 billion industry. I've been trying to really educate myself on it, and
it is so evil, they don't even call it what it is anymore. You hear about reproductive rights. Reproductive rights.
It's
really
dehumanizing a baby. A human being is a clump of cells.
Yeah. I heard somebody say one of the best defenses is when someone says, it's my body, I can do whatever I want to. Your response is supposed to be, I don't care about your body. It's the other body that I'm concerned about. And you know what? I've done a flip on this too. There's a lot of us who have done a flip on this. I used to be on the other side of this issue too, back when I was godless and didn't care, and it's only about me.
Yes.
So
exactly.
You know,
exactly.
A lot of us have been there. Yeah.
But yeah, these are lessons I'm learning. I'm slowly. I'm slowly.
You know, the biggest
there.
thing, the toughest thing, I think, Faith, for people to understand, sure took a long time for me, is that my opinion doesn't count. The only opinion that counts is God's. And my job is to conform my thinking to his thinking. And if I don't do that, I'm turning away from everything. My opinion doesn't matter a hoot.
Not even a little bit. No, it doesn't. Or ego, yeah. You don't get. That's one. You can't be full of pride or ego. You have to. No one gets into heaven if they've got an ego. They're gonna struggle, or they're gonna have some time in purgatory. To learn and grow.
Nothing unholy gets into heaven. Nothing unholy.
No. It's also a hierarchy in heaven, and it's not a hierarchy like on earth. It's sort of like some people, you're there to learn, and I've got so much to learn and grow, and there's definitely a war between good and evil, and the angels are down here battling demons every day, and they can't intervene unless we ask. A lot of my memory's gone. God doesn't want us to know it all. We're not supposed to. That's where faith, I guess, comes into it. But he let me remember what I need to remember and the important things, and that was family. Some people get a bigger mansion than you because they earned it. And I was also shown that everyone's got a crown of jewels, and it's symbolic. You don't walk around with a crown of jewels.
It's a different kind of wealth, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, a totally different kind of wealth. It's amazing. I mean, I desire to go back, but I know because I want to. Probably it won't happen anytime soon. It's usually how it works.
Before we get to the moment of the return, if you will, what else did you see? Because people are always curious about what you see, and you saw the different levels, and there's a hierarchy, there's a kingdom. That's the kingdom, yeah.
Oh, there's a hierarchy, and some people earned their big mansion, and there's no jealousy or anything. Right. There's no negative feelings there. You understand that The hierarchy, I guess, is I don't know how to describe it, but you're there to knowledge, wisdom, grace to get closer and closer and closer to God. And you all strive for the same thing.
We've also learned that you were able to see the different levels because you are on the outside. When you're inside,
Yes.
you don't see the levels. So there's no sense that, oh, that person's higher than me, I'm higher than you. Don't get into that hierarchy. You know, you're kind of in the midst of all of it. On the outside, you can see the levels, which makes sense.
Well, yeah, while you're there, you don't care. Like, you so
Yeah, that's right. Who cares? I'm here.
It's sort of individual to you as well, like the way God designs your gift, I call it, your gift. After I got to my life review, I had, I guess you could say, the awakening. I was allowed to stay. However, now God always knew I was never staying. But this is how.
Good for you, girl. Good for you. There you go. Now you're on to it.
But he said, you know, you can stay, but this is what's going to happen because of your choices, decisions you made on earth. If you die now, this is what's going to happen to your children. And it wasn't good. Like, it was beyond. And I had to come back to fix up my screw-ups for a start, try and save my children. And also, I did meet someone in heaven, Matthew, my partner's sister, who died 10 years ago now to a really rare brain cancer. And she was the most beautiful woman in the world. Like, if anyone got straight to heaven, it was Danielle. I never met her, but she came to me. She showed me what was going to happen to Matt if I didn't come back and tell him that heaven's for real. You need to change your life because you're going to hell, mate. And she showed me him in, well, not she, God showed me him in hell. And it was horrific. And to see something like that, for me, to not give up on him. And she pretty much said, if you don't give up on him, he's going to come good. He's going to be the most amazing husband to you, but more than that, he's coming here. He'll come here. If you give up on him, he's going down there. And I was so happy in heaven. I was, yes, of course. I won't give up on him. And I got to have, I guess, God's just showing me what to look forward to, because you don't want to leave. Like, you just don't.
Well, of course not. So you're finding out that your guy, Matt, he's going to end up in hell if you don't go back. What about your sons? What would have happened?
Well, my oldest son, he's 24 now, and he was 19 at the time. I was showing him OD'd on heroin in a toilet cubicle, which ironically ended up coming true some years later, but he's okay, but he had OD'd. And my younger one, he's 22 now, I saw him, he was hanging from a tree and he'd killed himself. And I was shown that he'd become an alcoholic and just gave up. And because of my choices, it was all my choices that my kids are going to be left without a mother on their own. And mind you, it was tough on them too, because they had a really good mum up until the 18 months prior to me getting sick. I really, I was a very good mother, and my kids went to good schools, and I was devoted to them completely. So it was really tough on them. But, yeah, I came back and had to, but God was just, he gave me a little feast. I guess you could say it was like a little celebration, but it's not little. And it was food and wine and singing and dancing. And that's the last thing I remember. It's very social. It's very, very, very social. It's not like you're just going up there just to party. It's nothing like that. No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. There's work being done. Very busy. I got to see that there's some seriousness too.
What are they working on? Through prayer? Through what?
Well, I don't know. I don't remember. Well, I wasn't privy to that just yet. But I got to see that there's definitely a war a war waging. God's going to win. He is. But us down here, we're a big disappointment. We really are living in bad days at the moment. I got to see. I don't really talk about futuristic things, but some things were shown to me that could potentially happen. Like, we've also got free will, but I don't really like to get into that. I'd rather just focus on.
It's interesting that you say things that could happen, that we do have free will. Now, I have no doubt God watches all this on his DVR, if you will. I mean, it's done. It's all done.
Yes.
Everything that we're going to do is done. It doesn't mean you don't have free will. You do whatever you do, but he already sees it. He's outside time. He can go to the end of time and look at it and go, here's what you did. But it doesn't change our free will. And yet it's presented to us and presented to you like, we can still change this because we can and we might. I won't dwell on it, but and I'll edit it out if you're not comfortable talking about it. I'll edit it out. But for my own curiosity here, what is it that you saw that just bugged the heck out of you that we could do that?
Okay, well, it's sort of what's sort of happening even now in China. Okay, I saw like Christians and anyone of faith are being imprisoned, having their organs removed while they're alive. Messed up stuff, but even worse than that, what they're doing with AI technology. I didn't understand it at the time, what I was seeing, but now I know. I've educated myself and watching just YouTube documentaries, because you won't get real news on mainstream media, unfortunately. I actually saw Chinese people in concentration camps. And
in regards to what Faith is talking about here, I just saw a program last night talking about the persecution going on in China. Anybody, any faith, anybody of faith, at least 1 million Muslims are in concentration camps. Facial recognition of anybody going in and out of churches that could be used against them, persecution. There's killings going on. There is an underground Catholic church, and then there's the state-run Catholic church. There's just a lot of bad going on in China right now.
I was horrified, but I've done some research, and that's what they're doing in China. They're selling organs, and they're actually taking it from people. I'm not sure what their faith is, but yeah, people that they've got in concentration camps, but they're calling them re-education camps or something. Christians and Muslims.
What are they re-educating them to? Just to
communism, and you're not allowed to have a faith. They're burning churches. I mean, priests are being murdered. Not just, it's happening also in Africa. There's a genocide on Christians, and that's pretty much what I was saying.
Interesting again that God lets you remember that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think he wants you to say it, because I think he wants us to know, because China scares the heck out of me. It scares the heck out of me of what's going on over there.
Little bit that does get out is that bad, you can only imagine.
There's a lot of appeasement going on with China, a lot of appeasement in both politics and in Christianity. There's way too much appeasement with what's going on over there.
Well, what's happening? Well, they're locking Christians up over there and selling their organs or torturing them on the black. What they're doing is disgusting. It's dehumanizing, but they're getting away with it because they're China. I do know that all the planets in the universe, when it was revealed to me, we're only one bit of God's creation. There is a vast universe out there, so much more that we don't know about, and it all flows together. Do you understand? It all makes each other work. I don't know how to verbalize properly, but God's mad at us right now. He's angry. He's angry, and he's showing us with these bushfires, with these floods. Now we've got this ridiculous, unfortunately, what they call political correctness, which is getting to a point where you're demonized now if you're Christian and you believe in the Bible, that you're considered to be a homophobe or a racist, or do you know what I mean?
Sure.
The world's become quite backward.
And he's getting upset. Yeah, he's upset. I have no doubt he's upset. Farther we get away from God, the more painful it's going to be for this planet.
Oh, well, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
Do you get a sense of special, it's hard to tell because you don't know what the other worlds are, But do you get a sense of specialness, if you will, in God's heart for us here?
We're his children. He created us in his image, so we're special. Oh, yes. And individually, he created us individually. He's connected to us all individually. I was shown, and I don't understand it because, like I said, I only remember glimpses of this and that, but I was shown that aliens are real. I didn't believe in that either, and they're demonic. I don't know what relevance, why I was told that knowledge, but I was talking to Howard Storm. I said, I was shown that I don't understand it. And he said, I was shown the same thing, that they are real and they are demonic. And I don't know if something's going to happen in the future that it will make sense to me, but that was something else that I was shown.
Yeah, that correlates with a number of people and what they know. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, because I tell some people and they just look at me like I'm nuts, but that's what I was shown. That's what I was told. But I also got to see things, a pet, a dog that I'd had. All my pets are up there. I was really surprised about that because my mum always said that animals don't have souls. They don't go to heaven. And I believed that, but that's not true. Everything you love is in heaven. All of God's creations is in heaven. All the animals are in heaven. Like it's like on earth, but so much better. But it's nice to know that my pets are. Yeah. My pets are up there, everything that we love. Yeah, so I'm extremely still, even though I've experienced so much. I'm still learning, processing it and trying to make as much sense of it as I can. But I got the basics, and it's that there is a God. He loves us dearly. We are living in the last days, and we are special for that.
When you say last days, did you get any special understanding of what that means?
I don't. I think last days, I think the world's going to get to a point where it is, they've turned their back on God and Christianity, and I think we're living in worse times than the days of Noah, to be quite honest, right now.
Of what, Noah?
Noah, yeah. I think that, but what I do have faith, what gives me hope is that there are a lot of good people in this world that do believe in God. I'm finding that out every day, that are praying, and prayers are powerful. And pray. Prayer's our biggest weapon that we've got, and there's not really much else we can do other than try and elect leaders that have got our best interests at heart, and that's really difficult. Like, it's just I just have to give when I get worried or stressed about it, I just give my fear over to God.
When you came back, did you immediately come to?
I don't know. I don't remember. When I woke up from a coma, even though I'd just come from heaven, I was still traumatized by my negative experience. And I was still traumatized by the fact that I demon nurses trying to kill me. And I woke up from the coma to be told I'd been in a coma 2 weeks. And my heart stopped beating numerous times, and I'm lucky to be there. I didn't trust nurses. I would ask them when they come in my room the first week, are you a Christian? Do you believe in God? And, they'd say yes, and ones would say no, and I'd make them sanitize their hands because I was paranoid about germs and infection. But, and the ones that said yes, I'd go, well, it's real, he exists, and so does the other place. And I'd tell them my stories. The nurses that I was sharing this with would say, you know how many people tell us that? We hear about that all the time. But the doctor that wore black.
Wait, the good guy or the bad guy?
The bad guy. He never came back into my room again. He would come, because I had my medals on at this stage, and I was fully aware they weren't coming off after what I'd experienced, and they're still on me now. You probably can hear them. He never came in my room, but he gave me a look this one day. It creeped me out. I didn't like him. His aura was dark. I couldn't wait to get out of intensive care after that.
Nothing you have said should have us shuddering in any way. Educated, yeah. It shouldn't have us shuddering because, like you say, evil is afraid of us. Look at everything. Every time something good was going on, a person, they flee. Prayer makes them flee. Exactly. A cross, a miraculous medal pinned onto you makes them flee. it doesn't take much to make them fly away. It really doesn't when you think about it.
It doesn't.
But you have to have God within you. You've got to accept. This has been a beautiful lesson.
Oh, really? I'm glad.
No, absolutely. These are great lessons that you've learned along the way.
And I'm still learning.
Trust me, we all are. No, we all are. What a blessing! What a horrific blessing. Can we call it that? Because I mean,
exactly.
Because before all of this, there was no God, there was no devil, there was no heaven, there was no hell. It's just you live this life and have a nice day, goodbye. And then you find out through these experiences, you see the pulsation of a planet praying. You see those prayers pushing you up to heaven. You see this heavenly existence. You see the hell. You see the demons and how much they hate God and us because they're getting in. We're getting in their way, basically.
They can't stand us. I've never felt such hatred, and it's very difficult to try to comprehend. Like I really struggled with that. Why they hated me so much, and then I realized they were demons. But they do. They hate us. They hate us with every parts of their evil beings. They hate anything that is godly like if you've got a loving heart, they hate you because love comes from God. We're created from love. It all comes from God. Anything that's anti-God, they love. And, I'm just watching, unfortunately, our world just literally, it's just changing so rapidly over the last few years, so rapidly, and it's becoming a real scary time to live, where I can't really admit I'm a Christian to certain people on Facebook or say I support, like, for instance, a certain president's policies on abortion. Just to say I support his policies on abortion, I get my head ripped off. It's really we're living in scary times.
Which president are you talking about there?
President Trump. Yeah. I like his policy on abortion.
This entire experience is so out of left field. How do you want to sum it up? What do you want to do to kind of close this out, Faith?
Okay. All right. That God loves us all. That the challenges that we have on this earth that are given to us are usually we get what we can handle, our challenges, and they're to help us grow. Being a victim mentality does not work. That comes from the devil, 100%. Prayer is so powerful. It is more powerful than it got me, literally out of the clutches of Satan's hands. He almost had me. I was right there. I was fallen. And God's mercy, God heard me. And I yelled out to him, and he gave me a second chance. And he's not only just given me a second chance, but everything I was shown has come true so far. Yeah, I went through another 2 years of hell getting Matt out of that lifestyle. Like, he had to go to jail for a little bit, which didn't hurt him. Some time to reflect is always good for the soul. But our life's amazing. I've never had anyone love me like he loves me. He's a Christian. He's a believer. He tells everybody about my near-death experience. But all the glory goes to God in every way. I've never been so happy. I don't have a lot. We live in a little 2-bedroom apartment right near the water. My life is so blessed. I have both my boys here, and there's nothing but joy and laughter and happiness in our lives, and that's because God's in our lives.
Thank you, Faith. Wow. Powerful. 2 very powerful episodes, and a lot to talk about here. And I'm a little stream of consciousness here as I approach this, and if I forget something, we'll come back to it as we go down the road here. But a number of things came up that reminded me of things that we discussed in the old Blind Faith Live podcast. I want to bring back up again here. One has to do with levels. St. Paul talked about the levels of heaven. Purgatory has levels. And based on Howard Storm's story back at episode 7 and this, in both cases, they are plunged into hell, seemingly hell. But we know once you're in hell, you're not getting out. So that lowest level of purgatory, which for all intents and purposes is hell, seems to have one little area still left, and that is a cry out to God can still get you out of there. I'm sorry, forgive me can still get you out of that lowest level. And Howard Storm experienced that as well. That cry out to God, it got him out of that lowest level, and the demons ran away. That's what I'm picturing here as well. And then up she came, as we talked about last week, that purgative level where she could actually hear the prayers and those prayers pushing her towards heaven. Okay, so levels. The mercy of God. I loved the lesson of her grandfather. He's beating Faith's uncle. He hates himself for doing it. She hates him for doing it. But God sees the why. And we talked about this also in the BFL podcast. There's always an excuse. There's always that's the mercy of God. He sees the excuse. He still wants the I'm sorry. He still wants the yeah, you're doing something wrong here. Say you're sorry because I'm going to forgive you, because there's always an excuse. And that's the way we are to be with everyone around us. There's always an excuse. There is a reason people do what they do, something. And we talked about this a couple of episodes back in my case of why I was closed up for so many years, some things that happened and how I, went into this hiding, holding pattern. And you just start looking at everybody around you. Everybody has an excuse, and God knows it. It's a fallen world. Don't ever think God doesn't know it's a fallen world. He watched it fall. He watched the angels betray. He knew they were going to. There's always an excuse, and that's the way we're supposed to be with people around us, to have that kind of God-like, Christ-like attitude of nothing but empathy. Go back, was it a couple episodes back when we were talking to Tammy when she saw Jesus on the cross, looking down at her and loving her and forgiving her. A woman who had rejected him, preached against him, and he's looking down because you know why? There's always an excuse. She had lost her father and all the pain that brought. Everyone has an excuse, and God knows it. He still wants the I'm sorry. He still wants us to find our way to him, but there's always an excuse. You can't even measure the mercy he has for us. I loved how she talked about women, mothers, accepting the motherly role, whether it's their own kids or somebody else's kids, how they are honored in heaven. That was beautiful, and why abortion is such a horrible, horrible sin. But again, I'm sorry. He understands there's always an excuse, and he wants the I'm sorry, but he understands the decisions made, his mercy, but that those children are growing up. They're waiting for us. God bless them. They're waiting. I thought how she described all of that, the nursery, beautiful. We're all part of the family. We're all his children. I thought she described that absolutely wonderfully. Animals in heaven? Why not? As she said, all part of his creation. And if it makes us happy, why not? If we loved our dog down here, you want your dog in heaven? Okay. I mean, you loved your cat, you loved your dog, your hamster, whatever. I had a hamster. I don't need to see the hamster, God. Just letting you know, I don't need to see the hamster. Okay, a short visit. Just a short visit. I'll be fine. Okay. Oh, aliens came up. And her impression, and others who have also had these kinds of experiences, talking about how they are demonic. For her to describe that way, if not they themselves aren't demons, then these are the demons' creatures. Heard it described that way. Either way, somewhere down the road, this is going to play out. When? Antichrist time? Before that? Just, and this is a reminder to always follow Christ. Follow Christ, the one you know now, not the one you may be sold later down the road, the one you know now. Because who knows? A lot of things could play out, and I don't know. But there's something there, and it kind of bubbles up every now and then, and I think it has something to do with the Antichrist time and all that kind of stuff. Part of the fooling of the world, of who we are, where we came from, our origins, things like that. The devil's going to fool a lot of people in a lot of different ways, and that could be one of the ways. Okay? And I loved where she started when she got to heaven, the life review, but how in that book of life, the I'm sorry erases the sin. No one gets into heaven. Nothing gets into heaven that is unholy. That's in Revelation. Nothing unholy gets into heaven. And so there still had to be those I'm sorry, still had to clear up what was in that book before she could be invited in. And I have a question for God. Here's my question for God. Did she qualify to go into heaven? Did you invite her in to heaven? Because she qualified, but the reason she qualified was because she said, no, I'm not going in. You know, here's my point. Why did she say no? Because Matt, her guy, would have ended up in hell because her sons have horrible things were going to happen. Had she said, yes, I'm coming in, would she have no longer qualified? You know what I'm saying here? God, you have any answers to this? My sense is that, Faith, you will be in heaven with your sons, with Matt. They're all going to be there. It's the family plan. It's the group plan. And remember, those who are around you, are you helping them get to heaven? As somebody once said to me, when we get to heaven, there's going to be Jesus there saying, oh, who'd you bring with you? Well, Faith is bringing Matt, and she's bringing her sons, and she's going to be reunited with her daughter. Bring somebody with you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing these stories. I need your story. I need your story, big and small. I need your story. Get a hold of me at touchedbyheaven.net. Thank you for thank you what? I said thank you for the holiday. And don't forget it. Thank you for your support through Patreon. Laura Asaf, thank you so much for supporting us through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com. Directly search for Trapper Jack or right through this episode 98 at touchedbyheaven.net. All right. See you next week here at Touched by Heaven. Everyday encounters with God. I'm Trapper Jack.